Welcome back. This is an Alex homework video on understanding the prefixes used in naming binary compounds. This looks very hard, but it's not that hard. I think you can do this no problem. If you are given words of binary compounds that don't contain hydrogen, most of the names are so obvious that you can easily figure them out. What you do have to realize in this example is that if you have compounds that are non-metals, okay, so non-metals, if you remember, is anything on the upper part of the stairs. So carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, all of the halogens, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, any of those non-metals, if they combine together, you're going to use Greek prefixes. So you're going to say it's like one oxygen, so monoxide, or two oxygens, dioxide. All right, so they normally don't have special names. You're just going to figure them out, and it's all based upon how many of each that you have. The "ide" at the end, the IDE, is always going to be the last of the words is going to end in "ide." And it's normally something furthest to the right when you look at the periodic table. So for instance, nitrogen and fluorine are both gases. They're both nonmetals, but the nitrogen comes first, and so you name nitrogen first. The fluorine comes last, you name it "ide." So whatever comes last, you're going to name it "ide." So that's the first thing. Also, you've got prefixes in front of the word. So nitrogen is the element, di is a prefix, fluorine is an element, tetra is a prefix. So you've changed fluoride twice. You've made fluorine into fluoride because it's the second in a binary compound like this, and then you've added the prefix tetra. So learning these Greek prefixes are not really that hard. In fact, some of them you probably could figure out already. So one is mono. So you've had like carbon monoxide, okay, mono. Two is di. Now you have to kind of be careful. Greek prefixes and Latin prefixes are both used in English words, and they're not the same. Like bi is two in Latin, meaning bicycle. Okay, it's di in Greek. But if you were to have three wheels, a tricycle, you would have used the Greek prefix for that. Okay, so it kind of goes back and forth. Four is another one. Quad is what you would see in Latin, but it's tetra in Greek. Okay, and so if you go back to your geometry, a lot of these are going to be in Greek. Five, most of you know, this is penta, like the pentagon. Penta is five. Six is easy, hexa. Okay, hexagon, most of you learned hexagon. Seven, you probably didn't learn, hepta. Eight, everybody since kindergarten has known that an octagon has 8 sides, so octa. And then 9 is nona. And 10 is deca. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to look at the name and find out how many of these nitrogens there are going to be, and then it'll be the subscript. So you're going to start with nitrogen. Nitrogen will be your first one, so it's going to be N. How many nitrogens? Di, so there's 2. Now, the second one is touching it. It's not over here. It's one formula. Fluorine is the element, so it's N2F. Now, the ide just means it's second. That's all ide means. It's second in the line. And then tetra, there's 4 of them. So your chemical formula would be N2F4, dinitrogen tetrafluoride. Okay. Eventually, you're going to have to go backwards, where you're going to look here and say, oh, that's a dinitrogen, that's a tetrafluorine, and then fluorine changes to ide. So dinitrogen tetrafluoride. Okay. Do the next one. This one, you don't have any prefixes. It's just one carbon, so you're just going to write carbon down. And now fluoride again, so that's F. And then how many of them? 4. So carbon tetrafluoride. So it's a solvent. Dinitrogen trifluoride, or nitrogen trifluoride. So nitrogen's by itself. There's no subscripts. So just nitrogen. Fluorine again is F. Tri means 3. And then chlorine, monofluoride. If you remember, the ones that come further down come first. If they're in the same column, then whichever is further down on the periodic table comes first in the name. If they're in different columns, whichever one is to the left comes first. So this would be chlorine, C, little l, and then monofluoride. Well, mono just means one, so that's just fluoride. Okay. Now, when you have the first guy, if it doesn't have any, you just call it by its name, carbon or nitrogen. If the second guy has only one, like the fluorine only has a 1 and it doesn't have a subscript, you have to put mono. Mono means 1. So you don't have to say monocarbon or mononitrogen because they're in the first place. But in the second place, if you have one that doesn't have a subscript, you do have to have mono. So CO would be carbon monoxide. And then whenever you have the word like oxide, it begins with an O. Mono plus oxygen is just monooxygen. That's just weird. So they skip the O because the O and the O, they just drop that O and it becomes monoxide rather than monooxide. Okay, I think it's pretty easy.